Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Wildwood Early Childhood Center Community Forum, Forum number 5 on this evening of September 18th, 2024. We want to thank the goodwill and partnership of WCTV, who has continued to be a great partner for this project, and I know will continue as we move forward. For those of you that might not know me, my name is Glenn Brand, and I have the privilege and pleasure to serve as the superintendent of the Wilmington Public Schools, but in addition to that, also the chair of the Wildwood School Building Committee. Consistent with all of the other forums previous to this, again, this is forum number 5, tonight is really centered around trying to provide information and updates on this really important project for our community as we look to the future of public education here in Wilmington. There will be, at the end of the presentation and an update, an opportunity for public questions, and we certainly will most welcome those when we get to that point tonight. Alongside with me, as has been the case throughout this entire project, there are a number of key players and partners in this project, and I want to take an opportunity to briefly introduce those to you. On my right, your left, I'll start with Julie Leduc, the owner and project manager representing the interests of the town and who works for the company SMMA. Next to her is Ronnie Phillip and Lee Dorr, both from Dorr & Whittier. That is the design company, the design and architect company for the project, and key players and partners in the work to date. To my left, your right, is our new town manager, Eric Slagle, who has been here but for a few weeks and has been jumped right in to help assist in this important project, and I want to take an opportunity to thank him for his collaboration. And finally, on the far right is Vivian Verbadian. She is both a resident here in Wilmington as well as the vice chair of the School Building Committee. We have a presentation tonight to go through. As has always been the case, we will make sure that the information that is provided here and shared tonight will be uploaded to our website. I'll talk a little bit more about the website, where we've been working really hard to compile all of the information related to the project. Next slide, please. This is an overview of the agenda that we will work through as we go through the presentation tonight. It is, if you've been tuning into these presentations previously, certainly some of this you may have heard previously before, but we want to take this opportunity again to provide an update to the community, especially as we're soon heading towards the decision on October 8th, I'll speak more about, by the School Building Committee. Next slide, please. Just to set the stage briefly, I think it's important to provide community members with some background, and this is really aimed for those that may just be joining this important developing story at this point in time. The town of Wilmington, the Wilmington Public Schools, has been in the process of exploring a new elementary school to replace the Wildwood Early Childhood Center. While the replacement of the Wildwood has always been a priority of the focus of this school building project, the effort from the outset has remained focused on the consideration of possible school consolidation with either the Woburn Street Elementary School and possibly the North Intermediate School. The bringing together under one roof of more than one existing school community, known otherwise as school consolidation, is not a new concept for the community of Wilmington. While it's not exactly clear how far back this idea started, it has been a topic that has been circulating within the community for some time now. Starting with the town facilities master plan, the first formal, more recent mention of this was captured in that document published in 2018 and approved by the members of the town's Permanent Public Building Committee. Cited in that plan, based upon hundreds of survey responses from community members and numerous numerous other staff members throughout the town and the department, as I understand it, there were two prominent things that emerged from that study and the recommendation to explore and consider school consolidation. First, a need to reduce transitions associated with our multiple smaller schools in the community. And second, that the size of our current elementary schools are less than efficient and not optimal, citing the fact in that report that more efficient school buildings are best to be between 400 and 600 or so students. Select Board and School Committee support was another important step in terms of the signal to explore school consolidation, The Select Board and the School Committee both signaled their approval to the then Town Manager Jeff Hull and myself as the Superintendent of Schools to submit our applications of interest to the Massachusetts School Building Authority, or MSBA, in 2020. And in that clearly outlined the intent to explore school consolidation of a pre-K to grade 3 and a pre-K to grade 5 facility as part of the Wildwood project. Following that, there was a special town meeting where there was, I believe, over 300 people who provided their support to support the funding and approve the funding, for the project team to broadly consider and explore school consolidation in connection to the Wildwood project. Educational visioning that took place at the beginning of last school year was next in part of the process here. We brought together over 50 community stakeholders, including parents and guardians, elected officials, students, and WPS staff. Throughout the process, a theme emerged around school consolidation as a meaningful consideration for the project to explore. And finally, the MSBA project community forums, at least to date, the 4 previously, have all sought to gather feedback from those who were in attendance, as well as those that had the opportunity to watch those forums and provide their feedback that we continue to do through an electronic platform called Mentimeter, of which we'll talk a little bit more about. Next slide. I mentioned a few times the team, and a project of this size and scope and complexity certainly hinges upon the contributions of many. This slide provides an overview of the team collectively. That includes the Massachusetts School Building Authority, or MSBA, the sole grant funding program in the state of Massachusetts to help school communities and towns offset the cost of new school construction or renovation. I mentioned earlier SMMA, again the owner's project manager, or OPM, and Doran Whittier, who serves as the designer and architect for this project. And along with that, the school committee, as it relates to planning for the educational program that ultimately will be in whatever new facility comes forth as part of this project, and the school building committee, of which we'll talk a little bit more about here. Next slide, please. The School Building Committee is on record with the MSBA and serves as the deciding body for which project will move forward in this process. Of course, at the very end, ultimately, this is a decision that will rest with the citizens of Wilmington, but at this stage in the process, the School Building Committee, of who you see representation here, serves as the deciding body for which project of the many that you'll learn more about in a few minutes will emerge and move forward in the process. By design, it is a large committee, but there was intention around trying to ensure that we had broad representation of key stakeholders throughout the community, both the school department as well as the town, and we think that we've achieved that with the representation that you can see here. I want to take this opportunity again to extend my thanks and on behalf of our school committee to these folks. I think the number of meetings that they have had to date is 19. It started some time ago. They have put in an awful lot of time in these meetings to date, and working very hard on behalf of the community and certainly our future students and staff and families. Next slide. One of the things that is an important component when you take a look at what this project really is all about is thinking about the future. And as you'll know more, and if you've been following this project, you know that we're considering a number of possible options of which to lead to one to move forward. But this is really a key moment in time, I think, and I would suggest, about thinking ahead. It's more than just the renovation of aged facilities, but it's really about thinking about the design and the functionality and how best can we design a new school similar to the process that was done a number of years ago for the facility that we now sit in, for what will best serve the interests of our students, our staff, and our families going forward. And with that, we're not going to play it tonight, but I'll take the opportunity to bring to your attention this is a rather short video, approximately 8 or 9 minutes in length. And if you haven't had an opportunity to watch it, I would really encourage you to try and do so. Last school year, we sent a number of staff and a number of members of the building committee and community representatives to go and visit new elementary schools in the broader greater Boston area. We have, as you know, 6 older elementary schools here in Wilmington. And so for someone who perhaps has not stepped foot in a newer, more modernized educational facility serving elementary students, it is a little bit difficult, and understandably, to imagine what new construction can be. I would imagine, although I didn't have the opportunity to be in the old high school here that this school replaced, I would imagine it would be something similar. If you haven't, I would again encourage you and welcome you to take a few moments to take a look at it. It is amazing to see what new school facilities can provide for students and staff and families. So there is certainly a key aspect of this project related to the MSBA, and there's a process and schedule for which a project like this and for a community such as ours has to closely follow. And so with that, we want to walk you through some of the steps to have a better understanding around what the building committee is also working with as it relates to this project. But again, just very briefly how we got here, the Wilmington elementary schools, all of our elementary schools specifically I'm speaking of, they're of similar vintage, built in the 1950s and the 1960s. And there are a number of space deficiencies in their educational programs. The intent tonight is to not go into deeper detail of that, but we've talked about this as a building committee and with the effort and assistance of Doran Whittier's team previously. It is true that each school needs a number of upgrades, including HVAC, plumbing, electrical, exterior windows, and so on. However, when we submitted the applications for this project, we were obligated to select one priority project. That is the requirement of MSBA, and because of that, we selected the Wildwood as the priority project. Enrollment is a key factor, of course, when thinking about new school construction or renovation. I just want to stop and pause briefly on this. One of the requirements by the MSBA for communities such as ours in a project like this is to ensure that there is a very solid picture and projections in terms of student enrollment. That certainly would make sense. Some time ago, well over a year ago now, between the district and the MSBA, there was a very deep exploration of our enrollment, current as well as projections, and through that process, a very regulated process, we have solidified these enrollments for the various options that this project is considering. Should a new pre-K to K building project emerge, that enrollment would include 130 students as well as pre-kindergarten students. Pre-K to 3 would be for 510 students, and the Wildwood, Woburn Street and North, should a pre-K to 5 building emerge, would be for that population of 755. With that, I'll turn it over to Julie, who will take you through a little bit more detail about the MSBA process.
Good evening. What you see on the slide in front of you is the MSBA process. The MSBA breaks their process up into modules, and they are numbered 1 through 8. So the first module, which we already were described by Dr. Brand, is the eligibility phase. We then moved into module 2, which was the project team which hired SMMA and Doran Whittier. We are currently in module 3, the feasibility study. Once the preferred option is chosen on October 8th, we'll be moving into the schematic design phase. The end of schematic design, the town will then vote for the funding on the project. Next slide. In feasibility, there are 2 processes. The first one is the preliminary design program, which we refer to as the PDP. We have submitted that to the MSBA in April of 2024, and we are currently in the preferred schematic report, which we refer to as the PSR. As we have extended our PSR with the MSBA through the end of October, while we're waiting for this vote, we will be submitting that on October 24th. From there, we'll move into schematic design. And schematic design is where the design teams help refine the project even further. We will do an additional cost estimate. SMMA will do one, and Doran Whittier will as well, and then we'll reconcile those costs. We'll then share that back with the community and be able to determine our project scope and budget agreement, which we will enter into with the MSBA in April of 2025. From there, the town will then have a vote, which will happen most likely in the fall of 2025.
In the first phase of the feasibility study, the design team evaluated the existing school buildings and facilities and sites that are part of this project. We reviewed the 3 school locations, Wildwood, Woburn Street, and North Intermediate, to understand the potential limitations and opportunities at each location. In general, the buildings are of similar vintage, but the sizes of the sites vary. This became evident when we began the site design and layouts for the multiple options study. We assessed current conditions of the buildings and sites, and this snapshot of the results scored give you an understanding of how each school compared to the others. As expected from buildings of similar vintage, scores are not that far apart. In general, North Intermediate had more updates to the building and scored higher than Woburn Street and Wildwood schools. Using this information, the design team generated a list of repair items and a code requirements that is referred to as the capital improvements to extend the life of the buildings for the next 50 years. This is the basis for the repair-only options we will discuss later. In summary, the facilities are maintained and currently operational. However, inevitable infrastructure upgrades may be limited without a major project to meet current codes and ideally the educational vision in Wilmington. The next step was to define the project needs through a series of 8 visioning sessions with over 50 participants representing the district and community, administrators, staff, town representatives, seniors, parents, and even students. We developed a summary of spaces for a proposed project that would meet both the building and educational needs for each enrollment studied, and developed 18 options at 4 sites for review. The school building committee's goal at the end of the preliminary design program phase was to shortlist these options. 15 of 18 options are renovation addition and new construction alternatives. The work proposed in the repair-only alternatives are not just cosmetic, but look to extend the infrastructure of the buildings and meet current codes as well. Individual items on the list may not trigger codes, but several smaller projects or even one larger scale project can trigger code upgrades and are included in these alternatives. These repair-only options do not add square footage to address the space needs in the district. During preliminary design program, the 18 options were evaluated. The shortlisted options were the front runners for each enrollment and type of project to move into the next phase. The shortlisted projects ranged from $26 million for a repair-only pre-KK option to $215 million for a pre-K5 new construction option. The preliminary design program submission to the MSBA in April included 7 options for further study. The shortlist included pre-KK, repair-only, and new construction alternatives at the Wildwood site. Pre-K3 and pre-K5 repair-only options were included for cost comparison only, as it does not include the pre-KK population, which is a requirement for any project that moves forward. A pre-K3 and pre-K5 new construction alternatives also moved forward. One pre-K5 renovation addition option was also shortlisted. Comments from MSBA included carrying forward a pre-KK and pre-K3 renovation addition options for cost comparison as well. The preliminary design program phase concluded with a short list of 9 options, 4 of which were for cost comparison. The options that were shortlisted were further refined in the preferred schematic phase. Our first step was to review and confirm the educational program and space needs. Adjustments to the pre-K classroom count and music and art programs reduced square footage slightly across the board, as highlighted in purple. The pre-K5 N1 is new construction of a 3-story structure located behind the existing building on the North Intermediate site. In the PSR phase, the floor plans are refined to adjust the layout based on programmatic changes and improve public and private zones, adjacencies, and travel distances for safety and code. This option included a larger 12,000 square foot gymnasium in the program. The north site has access to municipal utilities, and the building can be constructed with minimal disruption to the existing building. North Intermediate students can move into the new building once constructed. The existing building would be demolished to finish site work. Once completed, the remaining pre-K to 3 students would occupy the building. For each of the options we studied, the site plans incorporated feedback from our meeting with public safety officials and grading information to improve circulation during daily use and during emergencies. At the North Intermediate site, for example, we accomplished complete bus and vehicle separation and an alternate pickup option to accommodate more vehicle queuing on site if needed. Although a traffic study will be completed for the preferred site in the next phase schematic design, experience informs us that moving vehicles off the roadways and onto the site reduces impact of traffic to the neighborhood during peak hours. The Pre-K-5 AR1 includes renovations and additions resulting in a 4-story building on the North Intermediate site. This option also includes a larger 12,000 square foot gymnasium in the program. Construction would have significant disruption to the operation of the existing school. Renovations and additions are phased, requiring students and staff to relocate around the building as needed to complete work at each phase. Once completed, the remaining pre-K to 3 students would occupy the new building. Pre-K to 3 N1 is a new construction of a 2-story building located just north of the existing building on the Woburn Street site. From High Street, the building would appear to be a single-story building, taking advantage of the grade change with pre-K and K located at the lower level. The pre-K to 3 options include a 6,000 square foot gymnasium. This new option has significant retaining walls to accommodate circulation and field areas noted by the thick black lines, and the site is connected to town water but requires a septic system. The dashed line to the left of the proposed building is a classroom wing that projects over the access road. This provides covered play area during school hours. Buses and emergency vehicles would pass under this portion of the building when utilizing the access road. Construction would disrupt the operation of the existing school, as access roads and temporary parking would be required to construct the building. Students and staff would relocate to the new building to allow for demolition of the existing building and site work completion. Pre-K and K students would then also occupy this new building. The Pre-K-3 AR1 includes renovations and additions resulting in a 3-story building on the Woburn Street site. Similar to the new construction option, retaining walls are required to navigate the grades on site, and construction would include disruption to the operation of the existing circulation and parking. The new additions would be constructed first, then renovations to the existing building. Once completed, the remaining students would occupy the building. Pre-KK N1 includes new construction of a single-story building on the Wildwood site. This option was refined since the PDP phase, improving public and private zones within the building. As the site is unoccupied, no phasing is required. Retaining walls and a new septic system are required to accomplish this alternative. The Pre-KK AR1 includes renovations and additions for a single-story building on the Wildwood site. Similar to the new alternative, no phasing is needed, but retaining walls and a new septic system are required to accomplish this alternative. The intent of the preferred schematic phase is to identify a preferred solution. The shortlisted options were evaluated against the same 8 categories from the previous phase for continuity. The categories are what you see on the screen: education, site, restrictions and future use, community, sustainability, construction logistics, total time to address all needs, and consolidation. The overall scoring was consistent with previous findings, even with adjustments based on revised layouts and site developments. The highest scoring alternative was a new Pre-K-5 school at the North Intermediate site, followed by the Pre-K-5 Ad Reno option and new Pre-K-3 at the Woburn Street site. The shortlisted options were estimated in July. The estimates are to compare the relative costs between options. They are order of magnitude cost, not exact cost analyses or determinations of the final cost. Since the first estimate, some costs have gone up while others went down, but ultimately they are still in a similar range. So what changed from our previous phase? The adjustments from PDP to PSR include a reduction in the building cost because program square footage was reduced in this phase. In general, site costs were the greater impact in that at PDP, these costs are based on a percentage of the building square footage. In PSR, costs reflect a more detailed site plan, including site features, amenities, and additional grading information for estimating. The construction soft costs are a percent function of the cost and adjust up or down accordingly. Overall, the updated project cost either increased or decreased by 3 to 6% in the pre-KK and pre-K3 options. The pre-K5 options had a more significant decrease at 8%. One example for this is that the north site does not have as significant grade changes and the need for substantial retaining walls as the Woburn and Wildwood sites. Cost estimates range from $27.9 million for a pre-KK repair only project to $196.3 million for a pre-K5 new construction option. To help put these numbers into perspective, the MSBA shares historical and current cost data for projects on their website. The Wilmington High School data is shared as it is the most recent school project for Wilmington. The list on the right reflects the cost per square foot for current and future high school projects. The increase in cost is due to escalation over the last several years, as well as meeting updated energy codes. When we look closer at the projects currently in the feasibility and schematic design phases, the costs per square foot are closer in range with an average of $789 per square foot. The best way to evaluate these are by cost per square foot, since the enrollments and sites vary. This project falls right in the middle of the range. To understand the potential total local share to address the pre-K5 population within this project, we have added the cost of the repair-only options to each alternative. For example, if a pre-KK option was selected as the preferred option, it would not address any needs at the Woburn Street or North Intermediate sites. As we do not know when those projects would happen, we have included the total cost for those repair projects. So a new pre-KK option for $69.7 million would total to $149 million once the Woburn and North projects are added, since it is completed in 3 separate projects for the town. A pre-K3 project would result in 2 projects for the town. Aside from the pre-KK repair-only option, which does not address educational needs for the district, the pre-K5 options are somewhat less expensive since the pre-K5 population would be addressed within 1 project. The town has generated the estimated tax impact, and Mr. Slagle will take you through this information next.
Thank you, Ronnie. As part of the town's evaluation of the impact of this proposed project on the taxpayers, we took the mid-range of each estimate provided by Dorn Whittier and ran them through an analysis based on the total debt load that would place on the tax roll. So for instance, the estimated local share at the mid-range of the pre-K through K repair-only option was $29.3 million. Based on a 30-year debt exclusion in what is called a declining payment, the first-year payment for that debt would be $2.2 million. A declining payment means that we pay the same amount of principal every year, but we pay more interest at the front and less interest at the back. So by the end of the 30 years, the payments would be about half of what they are in year 1. The average tax increase for the average single-family home is based on the assessor's database that lists the average single-family home in Wilmington right now at approximately $683,000. So for the pre-K through K repair option, the annual tax increase for that average single-family home would be $160, or approximately $13 a month. As you can see, the same calculation was done over each option based on the midpoint of the estimates provided by Dorn Whittier and the midpoint of the estimates of the local share. Those are obviously subject to change once we have a final schematic design. Thank you.
Another metric to look at the information is understanding the impact over the life of the bond. The estimated number of students that will benefit over the 30 years stands out in this metric. 6,900 students if a pre-KK project is selected, 18,300 students for a pre-K3 project, and 25,650 students for a pre-K5 project over 30 years. Currently, the pre-K5 options include a high school-sized gymnasium. The MSBA program typically allocates and reimburses for a 6,000 square foot gymnasium in pre-K5 enrollments. With the decommissioning of the other two elementary school sites, a larger gymnasium space is currently included in the project for community benefit, with no reduction of programmatic needs for CARES, the rec department, and other groups utilizing the gymnasium spaces at Woburn Street and North Intermediate. The cost for the additional square footage is ineligible for MSBA reimbursement. The ineligible cost, estimated at $8 million, is included in the estimated local share for pre-K5 options that were previously shared.
As part of community outreach, as part of any large project in the community, it is important to garner the feedback and input from the community that it serves. With that, as part of the School Building Committee, the Public Relations Working Group has worked in partnership as well as collaboration with the School Building Committee members, the town, as well as the project team to reach the broader community in learning about the project at hand. With it, we have done many different outreaches, school building committees. The public forum held today is one example, as well as water bill inserts, and even the handouts and the pamphlets that were presented to you this evening that were also mailed to you, your residents. We have attended the superintendent of schools has issued newsletter articles as well as information pertaining to the project, as well as attending Senior Center Fun on the 4th, where we held a booth, and school district website, the project-specific website featuring frequently asked questions, display boards all around the town, as well as town-wide communication to all. This is all in an effort to garner as much information out to the public to gain your trust and give you as much information about this project in order for you to support. Ultimately, this is more than just an educational project. It is one that will serve the community for years to come, and we want to make sure that not only do we have the support at hand, but it serves the needs of the community.
We wanted to take a moment to share with you results from Community Forum number 4. At each of the community forums, we have used a platform called Mentimeter to ask and engage the community and obtain feedback. We had over 150 people respond during and after Community Forum number 4. More than half identified as parents. Overall, the preferences indicated that pre-K5 and a new construction project were preferred. Overall results also indicated that a larger gymnasium was preferred by those that responded. As Vivian just mentioned, to reach out to more of the community, a flyer with a survey link has been distributed throughout the town and is currently active. The survey will close on October 1st. Since we are utilizing the Mentimeter platform to solicit feedback from everyone in that survey, we did not solicit feedback in this meeting as we've done in previous meetings, in hopes that everybody that has not taken the survey will access the survey and provide their feedback in one location. We do have some preliminary survey results that we are going to share with you today, but like I said, these are preliminary and the survey is still open, and we will close that survey on October 1st. So far, we've had over 900 people access Mentimeter platform, the majority identified as parents or community members. Over 700 people ranked options, and the pre-K-5 new construction option at the North Intermediate site has ranked the highest to date. Over 600 people indicated they are in support of a larger gymnasium. There is still time to take the survey if you haven't. We find it works best on a handheld device, either a phone or a tablet. You can point your camera to the QR code, or if that isn't working, you can go directly to the website using the web address on the screen by October 1st. Feedback from you in the survey will help the School Building Committee make a decision about the scope and scale of this project moving forward.
One of the things that we have worked hard to do since the inception of this project is to try and provide as much information in an ongoing fashion to those that are interested in the community. At the beginning of the project, the decision was made to have the school department's website serve as the central repository for all of the information, and we've worked hard to try and do that. It's a little overwhelming. There's a lot of information there, but this is a visual of that, the spot of the location off the district website. If you are interested, you will find meeting agendas, meeting minutes, and past presentations since the very beginning of this project. We are working hard to follow open meeting law, and so our agendas are regularly posted, minutes are regularly posted after being approved, and all of the other relevant information has been gathered here, as it will as this project moves forward, even after the October 8th meeting. So if you're interested, please don't hesitate to check that out. We also have set up an email, Wildwood Project Questions at WPSK12.com. We appreciate those in the community who have taken the time to provide their questions, and in turn, those are shared with members of the building committee, as they will continue to do as the project moves forward. We have a couple of upcoming meetings to bring your attention to. Tomorrow we are returning to the Senior Center, at Wilmington Senior Center at 2 o'clock for an in-person meeting to provide a similar opportunity to provide an update on the project to date. The building committee met last evening. Their next scheduled meeting is on October the 8th at 6:30. It's both a hybrid and in-person meeting, but that is the date that has been identified for the building committee to make a decision on which project should move forward as the preferred project design, and so that's a key meeting date. That meeting date was identified through the collective input of the town manager's office, the school superintendent's office, and our partners here to try and make sure that we would be well positioned to put forth the information to the MSBA to keep us in good standing with the project. So. That concludes our presentation. I know it's a lot of information, and we recognize that for some of you, you've heard many times over. For those that may be joining, it might seem a little bit overwhelming. Again, the spirit of these community forums has really been centered on trying to provide information for those who are interested on this project. There's a lot of information to take in. We recognize that. But it's not just meant to be a passive conveyance of information. It's also meant to be an opportunity for members of the building committee and the team to hear from residents your feedback, your questions, and comments relative to the project. And so with that, the intention now is to open it up for folks who are here tonight to share any comments, questions, or feedback you may have. We have 2 microphones, as you can see, down here towards the stage. If you're interested in making a comment or providing feedback, if you could kindly share your name, try and keep your time frame to 3 minutes, just in the spirit of providing an opportunity for others who may wish to speak tonight. If we can provide information in response, whether it be from the town manager, myself, we have Dennis Kelly here as Superintendent of Public Buildings, of course members of our design team and the project team, we certainly will. If we can't, we will certainly be in need of trying to get back to you, but we will do the very best that we can, as we've tried to do with all of the incoming questions. And so with that, if folks are here tonight who might wish to share a comment, questions, or feedback, we certainly would welcome you to come forward at this time.
Good evening. My name is Radu Ivan. I'm a resident of Wilmington. I had a question actually regarding the budget. When you outlined the costs for the different projects, one of the things talked about was additional costs that would be incurred from upgrading the Woburn Street and North Intermediate schools. However, in the budget breakdown, that was only the cost for the Wildwood only without the further costs down the line. Do you have numbers for that just to have a normalized comparison between the three?
So in an effort to be transparent, so I do appreciate the question, and I think that's a very good question. In an effort to be fully transparent, it's not really possible to provide that information without knowing when and if those upgrades to the buildings would happen. They may happen as part of the regular scheduled budget. They may be a separate capital improvement project that's put forward as part of an annual town meeting. And so it's not possible to calculate the tax impact of those projects without having a defined schedule and knowing when they would happen. Those were provided kind of in the earlier slide to give you and the community a kind of a broader appreciation for the total impact of the bringing all three of those school populations into upgraded buildings. But it's not possible to calculate the tax impact on those without knowing exactly when and if they're going to happen.
Certainly, if I can add, and I'll ask Lee to do so. But yes, a very good point. And the analysis that Doran Whittier's team provided, to which you're speaking of, I think would be best to and make sure that we're clear here. Should be characterized as repair or replace of existing features in that facility. That is to say, it's not a renovation. It's not a change to the physical space or layout of the building. Not a change to make improvements towards better support teaching and learning in spaces that are better suited for this time period, but really repair and replace. Would you characterize it that way?
Yeah, it really was meant as a comparison. You're absolutely right. They have all the similar deficiencies as the Wildwood School, and they do need to be addressed. We just don't know the exact time frame of how they would be addressed. It depends on how the town and the facilities department looked at and making those improvements over time. The bigger comparison really is to try and compare as best we can apples to apples with the pre-K-5 population. So if we're looking at a new or a renovated pre-K to 5, we're dealing with that whole entire population. If we look at just the newer renovation with the pre-K-K, we're still not dealing with anything with grades 1 through 5. So the proposal was to try and get that kind of apples to apples comparison. We could do a new or renovated pre-K to K, but to take care of the full population, we would have to do something to those other buildings to extend their life to the same length of time as the new building, just to get a comparison. And typically, the MSBA wouldn't support a project that just is moving forward with a repair only, because you're not taking care of your educational needs for those next 50 years. It's just basically fixing all the infrastructure and some of the finishes in the building to extend that life. So it is a comparison to be able to provide the town with the local share comparison, because those two repair projects that are listed to extend the lives of those buildings, there is no MSBA component to contribute to those. So those are 100% local share costs. So when you add those 100% local share costs to the cost of the new or renovated pre-K to K, they come pretty close or closer in line with what you're seeing for those costs for the pre-K to 5 population. So it was really meant to demonstrate and compare those together. And they're certainly not completely apples to apples. As Dr. Brand had mentioned, they do not take care of any of the identified educational deficiencies in those two buildings. And it could certainly be approached over time for the town to be able to execute those repair projects. There's nothing saying that you have to do them all at once. There is a problem when you do start repairing those buildings. You're going to get your investment in them will trigger codes at some point, depending on the amount of investment. And so if you were saying, I need to go in and repair just the heating, ventilation, and air conditioning in this building, right? That's a significant number. in that building. And we'd have to compare that to what the assessed value of the building is. And if it's more than 30% of that assessed value, that cost to repair, it triggers us upgrading all the other codes in the building. So it's kind of that slippery slope, but you could extend it over time to try and avoid that. It's not easy, but difficult. So it's hard as the town manager to represent what that cost tax impact would be. What we can tell you would be 100% locally paid for. It would just be determined how you want to execute that over time.
Thank you. Gary DePalma. First off, I want to compliment you all for what you're doing for the town. I have a question on pre-K to 5, which I am supporting, I will say that. The question I have is the gym, the oversight, the enlarging of the gym. You're talking around $8 million, I've been told, anywhere between $8 and $9 million addition for that gym. Is that figure put into the estimate that you have been showing for the new school, number one? Yeah. It has?
Yes, it has.
Okay. I would not support any school that we'd have to shell out an extra $8 to $9 million to put a large gym in when you are stating it's for, I know it's for CARES and other programs, but also you're talking pickleball, basketball, residential use. We're talking a $200 million project here. And you're all of a sudden, not all of a sudden, you're adding on $8 to $9 million. I'm retired, I'm on a fixed income, and I know I'm not going to have any children going through school system. But I still support it. I support very strongly because I know education is our future. But to add that money onto a program designed today, I think it would be a poor judgment. I know the MSBA will not support any of that extra addition to the gym. And that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Just a couple of things to respond. I do think it's important to note that in the pre-K to 5 option that currently is carrying the full-size 12,000 square foot gym, that size gym is not necessary to support the educational programming in a pre-K to 5 school. We have run numbers and calculations in terms of how many sections of classes and students we would need. We can deliver that program in a elementary size gym. The 12,000 square foot gym is emerged first through the educational visioning process back in the fall of last school year, where it was recognized by those who were participating in that process that if a pre-K to 5 school did come online, there's a possibility, perhaps a high possibility, that the other elementary schools, the North and the Woburn, would be perhaps no longer in operation. And if they're taken offline, what would that impact be for space, for gymnasium space availability for other parks and recreation programs? So it's not a necessary aspect of 12,000 square foot gym in a pre-K to 5 school. I just want to clarify that. It's currently being carried because of that feedback and the input. The building committee certainly can, if they so choose, a pre-K to 5 school, decide to reduce that gym to a standard elementary size gym.
Good evening. My name is Dave Robertson, and I'm here tonight to ask a question as a private citizen, but also as your state rep. I just want to echo Gary first off. I've been following your meetings either on Zoom as an observer or the day after. So to you and the board, and then the board members past and present and the parental advisors, thank you. You're not getting compensated for this, so generally do appreciate it. I myself, as a private citizen, provided it's affordable. I'm leaning towards the pre-K through 5 based on the amount of land we have available in town and the consolidation. But something when I was working under Representative Maselli, going through the process with Tewksbury about a school of that scope, is something that I haven't really particularly heard of here, and I just want some assurances for myself and for folks in the audience that might be at home. The MSBA expressed concern with Tewksbury, who's not dissimilar from us here in Wilmington in terms of wealth and population and their capability to upkeep a school of that size. And in fact, the previous treasurer during some of our conversations noted that a school of this scope would be getting towards the size of Worcester or Lowell or Boston. So I just want to hear what we are doing to either plan or what we have in place to assure that we don't build this terrific school regardless of how many or how few kids there are just to have my successor in 20 years be standing there in front of the treasurer explaining why the school didn't get to its 30 or 50-year lifespan as we choose. It's a major concern. The state is absolutely thrilled, from at least my experience of Tewksbury, from some of the very things you're proposing through consolidation. Again, it's just the sheer footprint and volume that they had concerns on when our neighbors, our near identical twins, came forward with the same plan.
So thank you very much. I mean, I think those are very valid questions. I will reveal that I actually had a conversation about this with Dennis Kelly today, where we talked about maintenance of a school this size going forward. The reality is, if the committee did choose a pre-K through 5, we would anticipate that the custodial staff would be, a similar size to the custodial staff that's already in the 3 schools that would be kind of decommissioned. The square footage of space that's in the current proposal is similar to the square footage of space in schools that the public buildings already handles. The middle school and the high school are on one side or the other of the size of the school. So I have full confidence in Dennis and his staff that they would be able to maintain them, as I believe they're doing an excellent job in maintaining the middle school and the high school. Obviously the devil's in the details, and there's going to be options, I believe, going forward to reevaluate this total square footage. It may not be the exact square footage that's in the current proposal, but it's all within the realm of size schools that our public building staff already, more than adequately maintains. So I don't have any concerns about the staff's ability to step up and handle a school this size.
Sir. Okay, thank you.
Good evening, everybody. Rob Peterson, 20 Fairmont Ave. I'm here tonight. I'm a parent of a second grader, a kindergarten, a 3-year-old who will be in the school system soon enough and driving the school teachers away, and a 10-month-old. I'm here just tonight to lend my support to the pre-K to 5 option for no other reason other than been following this process. I see the painstaking measures you folks have gone through, and also what I'm seeing in the scope from what we have from a pre-K to K all the way up to a pre-K to 5. I prefer the option that holistically addresses our problem, and our problem is we have a bullet hole, and what we otherwise are seeing is, I see the other options is pre-K, K to 3, some of the renovation options, we're band-aiding that. And what we need to do is we need to get ahead of this so we're not being reactive. I think we're in the position that we're in because we built all these schools so close together that we've been forced now to be in a position to react, and I would prefer that the town be proactive, as we move forward. And to that end, I would just say that I would hope that the building committee, when they vote on October 8th, know that they have support from the community for the pre-K to 5, or at least the folks I've talked to. I'm sure there are some folks that have concerns over the tax impact, and that's a real concern, and I really understand that. And I also say that knowing that there is a disparity of incomes and all that stuff, but what we really need to be focused on is what is going to be best for our kids into the future. And of the spectrum of children I just told you, I would say that there are some of my kids won't benefit from this, some of my kids will. I've talked to people who don't have kids. Mr. De Palma just said the same thing. He doesn't. He would support something like that. So the scope of support would be wide. So I hope that you guys take that into consideration. And again, and I think another thing I've heard in the past was, well, we have a senior center, we have a town hall, and now we have a school. Well, I voted in favor of the senior center. I voted in favor of a town hall, knowing that this vote would also be coming before me. So I didn't take those votes in a vacuum. I knew that would be something the town was undertaking, and then this would also be coming down the pipeline. So I hope that other people voted for those projects in favor or against, considering that this would be coming up. And I would ask that the committee take that into consideration as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else here this evening who would like to make a comment or has questions?
If no one else, I'd like to go again. I'd like to actually state my support in favor of the pre-K through 5. To that, the two main arguments I would have is we already have other schools that are older, and we've seen that there will be a bill to pay for those schools at some point in the future, be it this year, next year, or in 5 years, but that bill is coming. And I think rather than put these fine folks through all of the pain of doing this again for the Woburn Street School and the North Street School, we can sort of fix that problem in one large project that solves a lot of the issues we're dealing with right now. So I think in an ideal world, this would be the best solution given the circumstances we have and would benefit the most number of children in the long term. And you don't have the headache of a septic system, which living in Wilmington, I have to say I'm not a big fan of. The other point I'd like to make, I'm reminded of learning about philosophy, and, give me a minute to remember being in high school and learning that society grows strong when people plant trees in the shade they will not benefit from. And I think this is an opportunity for the town to plant some trees, build a school of the future for many generations to come. And it makes Wilmington a great place to live that many people enjoy. So I think the pre-K through 5 would be a great solution for this, and I'm in full support of it. I hope the town adopts it.
Thank you.
Good evening, Stephen Turner. I was wondering if you could help with one piece of information that might help people understand the scope of the projects and the specific options in the MSBA guidelines. Because there's a slide you show where it talks about square footage and what MSBA guidelines talk about. And part of what I understand is that part of the size of our buildings is things like pre-K, which MSBA doesn't include in their numbers, and other elements that we've included. And so there's two aspects to that. One, what do we have in there that they don't typically? And two, the other side of it is my understanding also is that just because it's not in their number doesn't mean it's not reimbursable. So if you could go through kind of the space pieces and pick any one example, but at a high level, our numbers are larger. The buildings look large compared to what they're saying, but there's good reasons, and my understanding is most of those reasons line up with still reimbursable spaces. Thank you.
That is correct. Maybe I'll take the first swipe at that. That's a great question. And it is true when we put up that slide and we look at what the MSBA standard square footage would be for a population of the three categories that we have, we are over. And the reason for that is the stated MSBA standard is really their out-of-the-box kind of vanilla. This is the minimum requirements. They don't include any specific spaces for special needs. They don't include anything specific to the types of programs that Wilmington specifically runs. Right? Schools and communities vary widely on how they approach their educational programs. Some schools may be very athletic heavy, some schools may be very music or art friendly, and their programs are rich and they need more spaces. So we went through a very robust process of understanding what the needs were, right? What are the deficiencies that the educators are up against where the building is becoming a barrier to what they're trying to do? And so a lot of that had to do specifically with Wilmington with spaces for breakout spaces for one-on-one meetings for teachers to be able to have with parents and third parties, special needs spaces, testing spaces for one-on-one spaces with students. All that is additive to the out-of-the-box MSBA program. So when we specifically tailor, and we've gone through each of these configurations in great detail, running through scheduling exercises to see how we could be more efficient in our space usage. And these are the numbers that we came out with after 2 phases of challenging all of our thought processes on how we kind of proceed on this. So every single community that goes through an MSBA process, none of them are the number that is out of the box program. So they're all tailored specifically to the needs. And we've gone through about 6 months of very intensive work, which you were a part of, and we really appreciate that input that you had to really challenge us on how we were looking at things and how we could try and better utilize that space. So that's really the disparity that you see with the out-of-the-box MSBA program versus the square footage that are specifically tailored to your programs for each of those grade configurations.
Thanks, Lee. Any other questions tonight?
Good evening. Scott Neville, 215 Chestnut Street, speaking as a community member tonight. I just want to show my support for the pre-K to 5 option that has been discussed. By my count, the evaluation matrix says pre-K to 5 is the best option. To this point, the surveys all say pre-K to 5 is the option of choice. Costs, when including addressing the entire north side pre-K to 5 community, says that the pre-K to 5 option is the least expensive option. The school department and school committee have shown support for the pre-K to 5 option. The reason I've heard to not vote for the pre-K to 5 option is a fear of voters not supporting this in the spring. To that, I'd point to the March 8th, 2022 town meeting, where the town was voting to enter the MSBA program. The vote was 381 to 1 to enter the program. The community is aware that our schools are in need, that our 60-plus-year-old schools need work. I'm confident that the town can show the taxpayers that a pre-K to 5 school is a benefit to the community in the long term, and continue to explain that these schools need to be addressed. The town will have time to explain that losing tens of millions of dollars in state funding, if we were to vote that down, would be destructive to the community. So I again will ask for the school building committee to vote for the pre-K to 5 option on October 8th. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Barb Bodwin, 1 Leonard Lane. I had a question because I think there's been sort of a lot of commentary about K through 5, and I think one of the big things, and we're all concerned about sort of tax implications of such a large endeavor, sort of putting it all into one project. So I guess I'm looking at the difference between a pre-K and a pre-K 3 to a pre-K 5, and it looks like it's about $23 million difference, right, in terms of those two projects, in terms of the debt that we might take on. My question really is about the decision around 100% financing and debt, and whether or not, there are opportunities to use free cash balances or capital reserves that we have for the town. We made some decisions around the other two projects that are currently happening to use some of that funding, and I'm wondering if there might be an opportunity to think about trying to leverage some of that so that we can reduce the burden of a pre-K 5.
So thank you for that question. So at this point in time, the financing plan that's been put forward preliminarily involves a full debt exclusion for the amount of the borrowing. Whether or not the ultimate result of discussions with the select board, the finance committee, our finance director and my office ends up having that be the financing profile is a determination that will be made once we have schematic design done. We know what the lending rates will be at that time, and we've talked to all kind of the stakeholders and made that determination. There are other lending profiles we could take. This one is a declining debt schedule. There's also a flat kind of debt schedule, looks more like a mortgage we pay every year. So the specific financing options and whether or not funds are taken from a kind of a non-borrowing format are decisions that will be made jointly with all those those stakeholders. I think it's important to note for the folks that kind of thinking about this and providing their feedback to the committee, these are kind of general ballpark figures, and we want them to know the general ballpark figures of doing it this way. The town share of this, as I think Lee has mentioned, is an estimate right now. The numbers are not set in stone, so this could all change when we talk about the financing piece. But I think for purposes of what the community needs to know to evaluate it is what kind of the total impact will be, and I think that's what was intended by these numbers.
Thanks, Eric. Is there anyone else this evening who would like to share their comments, thoughts, or questions tonight?
Not to drown this out or prolong this. My name is Carrie DeYoung Phillips. I'm a parent. I live in Wilmington on Church Street. Both of my children have gone through each of those schools, and one is still in the north right now. And reiterating what a lot of people said, I just want to commend the committee and all of the volunteers who've put so much time and effort into this. I've been following this off and on. I attended the meeting that Mr. Neville pointed out. I remember parents being flabbergasted there was such so many people did show up and there was no real dissent. There was the one individual, and it's been a long process. And I will also, reiterate the point of fully supporting the pre-K through 5. It makes the most sense fiscally in the long term. But having seen the community boards and the communications from others in the community, I know there's a lot of questions that go around, and there have been, you have been very open with all of the information that's posted online. A suggestion, maybe addressing some of those comments or questions head on as an FAQ. Some of the criticisms I've heard, but I understand, I've seen the responses in different locations in terms of traffic patterns and when those will be addressed. The tax rate and what that means in the long term when you have a single school being replaced for pre-K through 5. We know that has to be done. What was the other? There was one other one that just escapes me, but if there's a high-level pre-K that you tackle head-on, it's like the devil's advocate of there's a lot of negativity that's been out there and criticisms that have come up at the last minute, it seems like. And having a single place to say, yes, we've heard you, we understand this question, this is our response, and having it in a single location. I haven't been able to find that, and just simply a suggestion. But I do, again, commend you all. This has been a great process. You've been very open and fully support another parent. So thank you.
Thank you.
Glenn, if I don't
Sure.
mind if I jump in on that. So we do hear you. There's been a lot of communication through the email address, and we've compiled all of the data. We've been sharing it amongst the leadership team to put together a really good frequently asked questions. I was working with Glenn's office today to determine what is the best place to situate that, because there are a lot of questions that are out there and a lot of things that we talked about this evening that I think are really important for the community to know, and they need to know them factually based on all of the information we have to date. So it is our goal in the next week or so to make sure on that website, on the school's website, that we update that frequently asked questions with all of the ones that you're referring to this evening, so that the public knows the information that we have in real time.
Thanks, Julie. Is there anyone else this evening who'd like to speak? Well, thank you for those of you that did this evening. Thank you to everyone for taking the time to be here. Just a couple of closing thoughts. Again, as stated, thank you to WCTV for their partnership. This meeting, as has been the case for the other forums, has been recorded or will be recorded and available to play back on demand. So we will make sure through my office that gets pushed out to all of those who are not here tonight. For friends and neighbors who might wish to take a peek at this, I would welcome you to draw their attention to it. The questions, again, I appreciate the feedback on that. There is the email for anyone who wishes to share their questions or comments. We welcome that. And I would also just note on that even following the October 8th decision that the building committee has to make on this, it is certainly not lost upon me, both as the role of superintendent of schools as well as the chair of this committee, that this is just the beginning of the necessary outreach and information and education around the importance of this project leading up to what will hopefully be the support of the citizens at large. So we are in the early stages, although we have been at this for a while, but it certainly will continue. Again, a plug for those that have not yet had the opportunity to take the survey through the Mentimeter. We will continue to do our very best to push that link and the QR code out there, and I would again ask for your help to draw people's attention to it. The results of that survey are a tool and one of many that the members of the building committee have at their disposal to make a decision on October 8th for the preferred option to move forward. It has been great to see the level of feedback. Based upon the conversation with our partners here, they have shared with us that this is something that they really have not seen in other communities, the level of engagement for a project like this at this stage of the process. So kudos to everyone who's taken the time to do that, and we encourage that to continue. And finally, as has been the case for all of the previous meetings, The upcoming October 8th Wildwood School Building Committee is a public meeting. There is a space and place for public questions and comments from the community, and so certainly would welcome anyone who wishes to come out on that evening to share their comments. They're certainly welcome to do so. And with that, thank you again for being here tonight. Thank you to our partners as part of the project, and we thank you for the engagement in the process. Take care and have a good evening.